I would like to invite our guest of honor to the stage, Mr. Khurram Dastgir. He is former Federal Minister for Defense, Commerce, Energy, and Foreign Affairs. Kindly welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Khurram Dastgir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm grateful to Ambassador Azaz Chaudhry and Ambassador Nagmana Hashmi, who roped me into this morning, and like a lasso, and sort of pulled me in, and to say that you have to speak here. And of course, my good friend Dr. Kamar Chima is here, and Hisham Saab, whom I know in many different capacities, is here too for the Sanober Institute. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak at a novel subject, which nonetheless is, of course, close to many Pakistanis' hearts. And to follow up on two very excellent speeches and very analytical speech by Harun Saab, I will not add much to the discussion, except to say that there are two places in Pakistan where I have felt the majesty of the Creator. The first is the northern areas, and I always, unbidden to my mind, when I see the Karakoram, the word that comes to mind are cathedrals. These are cathedrals to the majesty of Almighty. And the second place, ladies and gentlemen, unexpected, was on my many flights from Karachi to Gwadar, and see that utterly unspoiled coastline. And there are parts of it, marvelous peninsulas. And while one is flying over that coast, one always feels that there could be such great resorts. The word potential that is in front of us is immense. But I want to focus on something that Mushahid Hussain Saab mentioned, and again mentioned by Harun Saab, and I want to focus on that word, which is, Mushahid Saab called it bunker mentality. Harun Saab called it opening up. I yesterday also gave a sermon, practically, on opening up the Pakistani mind. But I think a better metaphor might be unshackling ourselves to our many attitudes. And one of the things that I felt as a Pakistani, that I'm sharing with you, and I said, after Mushahid Saab and Harun Saab's speech, all the analytics are on the table. But it's this sense that we as a nation have to begin taking pride in the culture of our land. I grew up in the 80s, and since then, one feels our culture shackled in terms of pride and in many of our cultural practices to religion. So I have to learn, ladies and gentlemen, with much of my compatriots, to take actual pride in having Takshila on our land. To not just read it in a textbook, but to lay claim and lay ownership to Mohenjo-daro, which we do not. So this cultural notion of taking ownership of what is on our land, of our history, and much of that history, ladies and gentlemen, is pre-Islamic. So part of developing the tourist potential, number one, if I have also a list, like my two very distinguished colleagues who have spoken here, is to begin as a nation to take pride on what is on our soil. Because that could be the foundation of this new confidence that I hope the Sanober Institute effort is a sign of, that we do want to develop our tourist potential. And by tourist potential means showing to the world our richness and strength and diversity. And that's the second thing I want to lay claim to, is to claim ownership of my diversity, of the different cultures and languages and ways of doing things that exist on Pakistani soil. And not to try to smooth them over, but to take pride in them. And say, yes, there are cuisines, there are cuisinal differences between North and South of Pakistan, which are rarely remarked upon. And there are strengths there that we can fully demonstrate to the world. That's what tourism is. Apart from, of course, to say that we need to make money out of it. And part of this laying ownership, claiming ownership of our cultural heritage, claiming ownership to our diversity, ladies and gentlemen, is the openness of mind. The openness to be able to welcome our international visitors. The openness to admit to ourselves that Pakistani service sector is in a rudimentary state. And about all the issues that we have, I think very ably put out by Harun Saab, is to clarify in our mind, at least it is clear in my mind, is currently the state of Pakistan, whether the federal government or the provincial government, does not have the capacity and the creativity to take advantage of the potential that we are talking about. So where will that creativity come from? One of the things that the state can do, and I want to put this example on the table, because yes, the state is capable of some things, is this massive increase in domestic tourism in the Kagan Valley and in the northern areas. Was it an accident? Did it just happen overnight that people decided that they wanted to go to Kagan or northern areas? I would submit not. It is a direct consequence of the state building the Hazara motorway, which has suddenly brought the Kagan Valley and the northern areas within the reach of an ordinary Pakistani. So you no longer need, four-wheel drive jeeps to get there. Anyone can get there. And that's why we have seen in the last 3 summers of Kagan choked completely, Naran choked, and parts of northern areas also choked. So yes, the state can build the transportation infrastructure, but it's very clear to me, and of course some of you might have different opinions. The state can build infrastructure, the state cannot build the service sector that needs to be built. And that's where the private sector has tremendous opportunity. And the state also has to begin to think about of how to leverage the assets that we have. Do we continue with Takshila in its present state? Or do we learn from Stonehenge in the United Kingdom, where there are, less than a dozen large stones, and for which they have built a multi-million-pound visitor center? I say this because one used to be able to just get out of the car and walk to the stones. No longer. There's a whole new, beautiful visitor center which tells you the history, and of course they make you pay tickets. So Takshina needs a massive visitor center, an up-to-date visitor center. And who will manage it? I think this is the question that many of the panels will have to face. How is that going to be managed? If, as is my dream while flying from Karachi to Gwadar, that there will be parts of it that will be massive and beautiful resorts. And are we going to just give out concessions or lease out? All these things have to be thought about before we can realize the potential. The final thing I want to talk about is this challenge of preserving the ecosystems and environments, because on which we have not been successful. And I think if anyone needs any evidence, Murray is less than an hour away to see how we have dealt with one of our prime resorts and look at the state that it is in today. So while yes, we want to exploit the tourism potential of Pakistan, which is tremendous, but at the same time, this stewardship of our assets has to also be paramount in front of us. And to say that we can preserve them and maintain them, not for a temporary 10 to 15 years boost in tourism, but for hundreds of years in the future. And again, there are excellent examples from across the world where countries have been able to do that through novel structures of public-private partnerships. But to conclude, Pakistan is blessed, and our challenge, ladies and gentlemen, as a nation and as those of us who have served in government, is to see how we refine and take stewardship of those blessings to make Pakistan and it could be one of the premier tourism destinations in the world. Inshallah, I wish Sanober Institute every luck in their endeavor. Thank you very much. Pakistan Zindabad.